Hey there guys, welcome back for another Warhammer Imperium video. This week I am showing you guys how to paint a Raven Guard, as with issue 16 this week we only got a couple of paints, and you can check the video for that up in the corner here. But without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so to start I've gone ahead and primed the model with some Chaos Black, and then given it a quick once over with some thinned down Abaddon black, just to get a nice uniform black on there that matches the actual paint that I'll be using. Here I'm now dry brushing over a 50-50, so a 1-to-1 mix of Dark Reaper and Abaddon black. And what this is going to do is give a slightly blue-grey tint to all of the exposed areas of armour. So anything on the outside edges, top of his head, shoulder pads, anything like that is going to get a nice little bit of grey on there, which will then obviously fade round to the black of the inner portions of the armour. Now on camera it does look a little bit brighter than it actually is, but it's not far off from that. So I'll get on with this and then we can move on to the next step. So once that dry brush layer is all done, it naturally picks off some of those edges, but not all of them, and we want them slightly brighter. So what I'm now doing is using the Dark Reaper on its own without the Abaddon black mixed in, and I'm going around the entire model and adding a thin edge highlight to all of the edges, such as the thigh plates here, the shoulder trim, the knee pads, anywhere that has basically a groove, a line or an edge to it will get an edge highlight of this Dark Reaper. Once that is done, I then take a 50-50 mix of Dark Reaper and Fenrissian Grey, leaning slightly more to the Fenrissian Grey, but it is pretty much a 50-50 mix. And I'm using this to highlight all of the outer areas where the light is going to hit the most. So where the Dark Reaper would line in the darker areas, such as on the inside of his legs and his underarms, this will only go to the outer and upper exposed areas. And then finally, to finish off the armour, using some Fenrissian Grey on its own, I'm just adding a few spot lines right on the upper outermost edges that will be exposed to sunlight. So this sort of represents that little bit of bright gleam that you get on corners and you know, really sharp edges. Okay, so with the black of the armour all now finished, it's now time to move on to the helmet. And as I'm doing each of these guys as a single sergeant, I'm painting this helmet white as the Raven Guard. I believe, I may be mistaken on this, but I believe they have white helmets for the sergeants, and then the sort of the chapter elites have white arms as well. I think that is how it goes. If you know different, then feel free to correct me down in the comments below. But for now, I'm just taking the Fenrissian Grey and applying a few thin layers over the helmet as a base for the white. So now that we've got the Fenrissian Grey nice and laid down, I'm now taking some Corvex White and I'm going to apply this again over the whole of the helmet, not worrying about getting in those recesses and stuff. Obviously I'm getting in them is what I mean. I'm not worried about not getting paint in them. So we're going to cover the entire helmet, and I'm just going to leave down the side that I'm now brushing on slightly darker, in that I will go over the other side with a few more layers, just to give a little bit of shadow on the inside area there. So once that's done, just to add some shading in those recessed areas now, I'm just using a mix of contrast medium with the Fenrissian grey, and this is roughly 1 part Fenrissian grey to 6 or 7 parts medium, and all this is going to do is just slightly stain the white, but more so it's going to sit in those recesses. It's going to flow in there a little bit like an ink would, but not quite as harsh, and then that will give a nice subtle shadow just down in those recessed areas. So moving on to the rest of the model now, I'm just mixing up a nice grey. You can use Mechanica standard grey or something like that, but really this is just for the under armour that shows on the back of his knee pad. It's the only place that has the under armour, so I'll apply just a few thin lines over that, and I'll also use this for the sword and the pistol. So with the sword edge highlighted in the same way that we did the armour, but with the quick made grey or the Mechanica standard, I'm now taking some lead belcher and applying this to the blades of the sword, the teeth of the chainsword, the backpack vents as you can see here, as well as the edge of the circular, I call them the circular vents up the top, so the dome type vents. I'll apply that just around the rim of them, the sort of cylindrical bit before, as you can see here. I'll let it play. So there you go, literally just around this bit, but not up onto the rounder part. So just around the trim, and then the vents themselves underneath. I'll also do this along the barrel for the bolt pistol, and also the magazine area and the back of the gun that's just above his hand. So for the gun itself, I'm just using some Mephiston red and painting that all over the upper portion of the gun. So along the top here, leaving the hand grip at the front black, and obviously we've painted the rest of it in the metallic. I'll also use the Mephiston red to paint the trim along the shoulder pad of his gun arm. They don't have it on the other shoulder pad, it's just the right hand pad around the trim on that. So for the highlighting of the gun and the shoulder pad, and you can see here I forgot to mention that I also do this part of the chainsword, but I'm now using some Evil Sun's Scarlet and just going around all those edges just as we did with the armour, painting a nice thin line just to give a little bit of an edge highlight. For the upper exposed portion of the gun, I'll actually thin this a little bit and run this pretty much up the whole of this upper exposed portion and sort of layer it, so nearer the edges I'll get a little bit brighter and then just layer it up slightly. Then to finish that off, I just run a very thin glaze of Agrax Earthshade over this, just to darken up some portions and obviously get it into some of those recesses. The weapon itself doesn't have too many recesses, it's just sort of around the back sight up the top, and then on the chainsword here it's just where the vent attaches to the sort of the blade part. There's just a little bit of depth added there with the Agrax Earthshade as well, and then I'll let that dry and that will be the red portions done. So moving on to the pouches now, I wanted to keep this nice and simple and clean, so I'm just giving this a straight coat of Mournfang Brown as the base coat, and on the pistol pouch here you can see the portion at the bottom that I leave black, that I actually go back in and paint with lead belcher. Oh, I'm going over it with the brown, but I do go back in and do that with the lead belcher just to trim it off. And I'll do this for all of the pouches, including the one on the front. Once that's done, I'm just going in with some Scrag Brown and just adding in a couple of thin lines that represent sort of scratches and scuff marks, and just a nice edge trimming. Like I say, I wanted this to be relatively a new pouch look, so it's just having some basic highlights. Once that's done, I then just give it a straight over wash with the Agrax Earthshade, which will tone it all down slightly and darken some of the recesses up. And then I'll go back with the Scrag Brown and just re-edge highlight on the sort of the center portion. As an edge reaches the outer edges or corners, I will fade it off, and that will just leave an extra highlight on the edge of the leather there. I'll then make a small mix of Scrag Brown and the Corvex White up just to get a slightly lighter tone, and you can see here I'm just picking off some of the edges where that leather may have been worn away a little bit, and just a few little scratches and details here and there, and then with that the model is done. So I'll finish this off and then we can take a look at the final thing. And there he is, guys, one completed Raven Guard. Now I haven't got any Raven Guard transfers, so I'm unable to do his squad or chapter emblems, and I'm not going to attempt to freehand it just for one model. So unfortunately he is technically chapterless, but yeah, there we go, he is a Raven Guard. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. As always, if you have enjoyed it and it's been useful to you, then feel free to hit that like button and leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the video and where you think I could improve on making future content. If you have not yet subscribed and would like to subscribe, then please do so. Hit that subscribe button, ding that bell for notifications of when new videos go live every Wednesday for these Imperium videos. If you have recently subscribed, then a huge warm welcome to you. Welcome to the inner circle. Thank you so much for your support. And if I could ask one more thing from you guys, if you have stuck around this long, could you please share the videos on any sites you think that people would be willing to see them? It would help the channel grow. The more people I can get into the channel and to view my videos, the more YouTube's algorithm picks it up and puts it on those front pages, which in turn helps the channel grow. So if you want to help support, then feel free to do that. Otherwise, guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you ever so much for joining me. But until next time, take it easy and keep painting those minis.